Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm your host, Alan Sakyan. I am doing an episode of my blog and my podcast. On 2030 Podcast, we are now on episode number 47. This one is going to be on answering profound questions. So, I have recently come up with this list of what I think are very profound questions, and I've been sending them to prominent people in my network. such a me thing to do, just not care at all about how people respond to it. Definitely a lot of no's, like a lot of no responses and stuff like that. But a lot of people got interested. Some people replied to me. Tim Draper replied to me saying, "Best interview questions ever." And I hope that you guys feel the same way. And I'll go ahead and start it up right now and go ahead and start telling you what the questions are. And I'll be providing my answers to the questions. And then I'll post the questions also online later in a separate post under the podcast and on the Facebook Live and on the YouTube page and everything. I'll be posting the actual list of questions. I'm quickly going to go live on Twitter. I did forget about that platform. Let me quickly go live on Twitter. In the meanwhile, I'll tell you I just did an incredibly cool presentation at Draper University for a bunch of entrepreneurs, and that was a lot of fun. I really, really like training entrepreneurs. It's a lot of fun. And it's really important for our world. So, answers to profound questions, go live. All right. Double flipping the camera. All right. So, I am live on Twitter as well. If you want to go check us out on Twitter, feel free to do so. Hello, everyone on Twitter. We just went live. This is an episode about answering profound questions for our blog, our vlog, and our podcast. So, all right, here we go. Answers to profound questions. First question. Do you believe we are in a computer simulation? I believe that it is likely that we are not in base reality. I believe that it is likely that the creator of the world that we live in today simply made the laws of physics and math the programming language, and that's what we live in, and is just running a massive experiment on how these little ants run around on every single one of these rocks that are orbiting stars. So that's potential. I think it'd be one of the greatest experiments ever to see which civilizations thrive and which ones kill one another and which ones die to asteroid impacts or diseases, that kind of stuff. So now I don't know what it would take to actually simulate a universe. You know, once you have enough computing power, could you write the laws of physics and math into computer code and put a bunch of humans in experiments? Like, I don't know. All of our senses are so alive. All right, I'm interested to see what your thoughts are, everyone at home. Next question is, do you believe we are alone in the cosmos? So similarly, Francis Drake's and his Drake equation have an estimate of around 1 in every 5 stars has an Earth-like planet orbiting it. So if there's 1 in every 5 stars have an Earth-like planet orbiting it, the likelihood that we are alone is low. With 200 billion stars in our Milky Way, we're looking at somewhere around 40 billion stars alone have Earth-like planets. So who knows? So what does classify life? Is life bacteria? Is life your ability to build a radio transmitter and communicate with people? Or are alien species currently looking at us right now and thinking that's not life yet? Because there's still war and there's still poverty and there's still suffering, there's still disease, etc. So what actually classifies life? So good first two questions. Looking forward to hearing your responses to those. Next question is, do you believe consciousness is localized in the human brain? So again, this one's really tough. With all of the neurology and the wiring up there and all of the biochemistry that actually occurs for us to intake senses and experience a world, I'm not sure. Obviously, nobody really has an answer to that. So do you believe that? Could consciousness be localized outside of the brain? Absolutely. Do we know how it could be localized outside of the brain? Is it in the fourth dimension or the fifth or the sixth or the 11th dimension? Where is consciousness? Where does it come from? Does it just come and plug right in? Does it actually occur right here? It'll be a good question to ask more neuroscientists. All right, next question. Do you believe in free will or determinism? This is a good question. So I'm not quite sure if the Big Bang happened and then everything's determined. For example, what if I chose to not do this video, or what if I chose to do it, or was it already determined that I was going to do it? So who actually knows that? But at the end of the day, I think we have some say in it, don't we? Or is it all just deterministic completely and we have no say? I feel like if I want to put my right hand up right now, I will. But that's a good question. I think regardless, it's really important for us to desire to go further with this free will, as in take control of our life and take initiative for achieving things that we strive to get done. So I think that's really important. All right, let's go on to the next question. Next question is, do you believe there is a global ruling class? If so, should one endeavor to join it? So it's a really good question. I think that there has always been a global ruling class since day one of civilization 6 million years ago. There's always been rulers. Has it been as crazy intense as it is today, potentially? We don't know. But this so-called ruling class, is that like the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers, or is that more today's Brin and Zuckerberg and Bezos? Is it more of that family? Which one? Or is it both? Or so? Sup, Lance? Thanks for giving the like over on Facebook. So should one endeavor to join it? So the reality is if you want to change the world for the better, the best way to do so is by acquiring some sort of power and value and money, giving people things of value, and then changing the world even more with that. It's really tough to just sit on the streets with a megaphone and try and convince people of your thoughts. If you're able to actually scale what you're trying to bring to the world and actually impact people that way, money will help you enable you to do that better. So I think it's really important, if you want to build the future that you want to live in, then you should in fact be a part of the Trilateral Commission and all of those great organizations where people come together and talk about what kind of a world they want to bring. I'm not familiar with them. I don't know. I just read about it. So next question, do you believe AGI, artificial general intelligence, poses an existential threat to humanity? So the quick answer here is just yes, flat out yes. It does absolutely pose a threat to humanity, an existential threat to humanity. If you think about the way that we just, without a second guess, just walk over ants on the curb, or like we were able to, we surpassed the biology of Earth, like with eagles and everything else. We made Boeing 747s. So I think, yes, AGI will surpass human intelligence. And then at that point, if it can think creatively and emotionally, and if somebody decides to program it to want to control, to rule the world, then it absolutely does provide an existential threat. And next question is, do you believe humans will be able to become self-actualized after the proliferation of automation? Yes, humans can become self-actualized after the proliferation of automation, but it will require different skills. As in, it will be more about emotional intelligence after automation. It will be more about interdisciplinary connections to different scientific fields and technologies and economics and the way humans move on the planet. We'll have more time to obviously explore that. I just love the thought of drones bringing us spinach from the fields that robots have planted, watered, and harvested. All right, next question. Do you believe the rapid accumulation of global debt through fiat currencies and quantitative easing will inevitably cause economic collapse? My answer is yes, because we've seen it happen in the past before, and it only makes sense logically that when the dollar is not backed by anything, that we can just continue printing and easing money into the money supply in hopes that we will increase the quality of the economy and the living standards for everyone. But we've definitely seen a mass amount of that wealth be just brought upward to the highest echelons of percentages, and then people fall behind that don't get any of that new wealth that's brought into the system. So it is causing a little bit of it's causing economic inequality, but also it's just causing things like fractional reserve banking. You go into a bank with $1,000, give it to them, they lend out 900 of it to the next person at 25% interest. They're not paying you that interest. So I do think that it will inevitably cause economic collapse. So we need some sort of reform to prevent that. The next question is, do you believe in the decentralization of government and banking entities with technologies like blockchain? Yes, my answer is yes. I do believe that technologies like blockchain will decentralize government and banking entities, and I think that's great to not have a centralization of power, but rather have it decentralized across people and have it be peer-to-peer without an intermediary, but just peer-to-peer with binary zeros and ones and electricity. I definitely have faith in that. It's going to be really important that there is no way for any bad players to tap into it and try and control it for their own purposes. Next question, do you believe that anthropogenic global warming is causing catastrophic climate change? So this is also a very good one, and it's tough to give an answer to this because we don't actually know. If you guys remember what happened with Bruno back before Copernicus, I mean, we're talking about one person out of millions of people that said that no, the Earth is not the center of the universe. The Earth orbits the sun. The sun doesn't orbit the Earth. And so, if you really think about that, it's potentially likely that some people that think that we are not causing a catastrophic climate change could potentially be right. It might not be. It might be humans just aren't causing as much crazy climate change as we think we are. Has the parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere increased? Yes, we see it go up from 300 million to 400 million. Has the amount of of sunspots on the sun increased? How are we measuring water levels? How are we measuring, the Mariana or the Great Barrier Reef has recently come to a acidified state. So there's a lot of these things to consider into this question. So I don't think it's as simple as just saying that like humans are causing climate change. It's catastrophic. It's going to kill everybody. I also think that fossil fuels are what's powering civilization today. 95% of all of our energy we consume is fossil fuels. And so it's really important for us to continue powering civilization through fossil fuels for now, as we also transition to sustainable sources of energy. All right, next question. Do you believe genetic engineering and neural prosthetics will exacerbate wealth inequality? Hi, Michael. Hi, Michael. Thanks. You and Allie are checking it out. Nice. Appreciate you tuning in. This is a good question. Do you believe genetic engineering and neural prosthetics will exacerbate wealth inequality? So this is a very important question to ask society and to converse about in the world, because if we're not talking about these things today, then we're going to lose out on what the future is actually going to do. When you have the opportunity as a parent to genetically engineer your child to have a higher metabolism or higher intelligence, or if you have the ability to plug a neural coded chip right into their brain and give them access to all of Wikipedia, will you do that? Will you do that? And the next question is, what if that costs $1 million? Then what? Then who can afford that? Who's going to be working to bring that cost down to just $50 so more people on the planet can afford it? So these are these important questions to ask one another, these profound questions. I do believe that it will cause some sort of further exacerbation of wealth inequality. Obviously, as you know, when the first televisions or cell phones came out, that they were extremely expensive and only the top richest people could afford them, just like the cars as well. So when you look at it right now, it's going to happen again. Neural prosthetics as well as genetic engineering will be available to the rich to start, and they will do it, and we'll see kind of what happens after that. So it will definitely create a little bit of a gap, but then I think more and more people will be able to afford it and catch up. Next question, do you believe in human immortality? So yes, of course I believe in immortality. Is there a... Part of me definitely says that death is a natural thing, that it's totally okay for us to live and die and live and die, and are we going to be rebirthed somewhere? We don't know. But part of me also thinks that we have incredible technology. I mean, just downright, a life expectancy has went up so much. Hi, Brandon. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for watching. The life expectancy has went up so much that it's inevitable that we continue increasing life expectancy, and eventually, with what organizations like SENS are doing, strategies for engineered negligible senescence, can we literally come into a human body like we can come into a human car, and can we, as it's deteriorating over time, can we come in and tweak the biology, so that way my 24-year-old homeostatic capacity gets brought back to what a 12-year-old homeostatic capacity would have been like. So my ability to come back to equilibrium has just gotten better and better and better, but I've kept aging. So can we come in and make these tweaks? Can we become immortal this way? Yes, I think we can, and it would be really cool to see what that would do. Imagine, what is a baby today, a baby born in 2017, how long are they going to live? Is their life expectancy going to be 120 years? That's kind of what it's looking like. So, next question. Do you believe we should colonize Mars globally or nationally? So this is a really important question for civilization as well. When you're up in the International Space Station, which is an international effort, when you're up there and you're looking down on Earth, do you see borders? The answer is no, you don't see borders on Earth. So when you look at Mars right now, do you see borders? No. Or when we colonize Mars, are we going to make borders? Is it going to be the first person that lands there, tries to colonize it all and make all the rules, and then put up a missile launcher and shoot missiles up at the spaceships that try and approach it? Or are we going to go there with the efforts and the ideas to colonize together? So that if the United States is there and China lands, that we work together, that our robots together will work on building a civilization there for all. I would much prefer to build a we are one sort of mentality on Earth, and build a we are one mentality on Mars, and on every other celestial object that we go and conquer. This whole we are one idea is so true. The biosphere is all collective. We've been gifted this consciousness. It is time for us to fully realize how interconnected we are and to colonize things together like Mars as a globe. But still have private efforts like SpaceX is leading right now to go there first, of course. All right. Next question. Do you believe the democratic election process needs modernization? Yes. Absolutely yes. I think the founding fathers of the United States never once thought that, oh, we'll just write this and then they won't iterate on it for the next 100, 200 years. I mean, we iterated on it with amendments, but we literally live in the age of internet, spaceships, and social media, and we have the same constitution from 240 years ago. I mean, let's be real here. It's time to modernize our election process. It's time to modernize the way that we vote. It's time to modernize the way that we get information about politics. It's time to modernize the way we educate people before they go and vote in the political election. Those are all really, really important things. And we're going to see this become even more important once we have things like an actual virtual system where they can imitate what a president looks like perfectly. You can fake what a president looks like perfectly. And then you can just go about saying that they said this crazy thing and that they're starting a war, but it wasn't actually the president who said it. It was just a video online, a mock of what that person actually looks like and speaks like. So we're getting closer and closer to that, so keep an eye out for that. Next question, do you believe political correctness restricts freedom of speech? Yes, political correctness does restrict freedom of speech. If you think about it, the more that you're free, and this is a main point in our Constitution, the more that you're free to speak about how you feel and what you want the world to be like without getting quelled and shut up because you're not being politically correct, the more of an intellectual democracy we'll have, which is one of the most important things for us to keep up as we pursue our democracies, to keep it highly intellectual, to be able to talk to one another about ideas without shutting each other down. This also requires high amounts of empathy as well. Next question, do you believe government regulations put too much restriction on innovation? I do believe government restrictions put a lot of restriction on innovation. I think it is too much at times. For example, nobody can make a drug right now. Nobody can make a healthy alternative drug that can get approved by the FDA without $1 billion. What is that? Why? I know for the healthy and safety of humans, but why is it $1 billion to make a drug? Why does it have to take so many years? Same thing with international talent. Why do we have to take visas and all these applications in order to work together across these borders? Why don't we bring smart people together without all of these problems and let them innovate and bring products and services to the world? All of this regulation hurts the long run, but it also helps in some cases, and it's important to make sure that some of those regulations that we come up with together end up keeping the safety and the collectiveness of the planet together, but it's important to innovate and to allow and foster great innovation. Next question. Do you believe in nuclear fusion as an energy source for civilization? The answer is yes. Hi, Chris. Thanks for your comment. Let me get to it when I get to a question about that. My answer is yes. I believe in nuclear fusion as an energy source for civilization. So I think if you look at our star is a perfect example of a beautiful nuclear fusion that's constantly happening. We have to take what the star does and bring it to Earth. And so there's plenty of people that are doing this with the Tokamak reactor right now, where you are in a controlled environment smashing hydrogen atoms together and then trying to collect that energy and have that energy take less to actually power it than you do getting out of it. So once we get that on a constant spin and it ends up producing more and more and more energy, it's going to be ridiculously effective and efficient, just like our stars. I think we really have to do that on Earth. I think that's something I'm really passionate about. I know there's been a lot of disasters as well. I think it's really important to understand the best and pursue technology and research into the best possible ways to optimize nuclear fusion. And it's endless. There's H2O, there's hydrogen and water. So it's endless, our endless ability to power civilization. So other ways to do so are, of course, like putting a bunch of satellite solar panels around our star and harnessing that energy through lasers back to Earth. There's a lot of different ways to do so. Okay, next question. Do you believe in lab-grown meat without the use of animals? Yes, I do. I believe in lab-grown meat without the use of animals. This is going to be a really important biotech industry in the future. It already is becoming one. It's quite expensive right now to make meat without animals. That's why it's like $1,000 for a meatball right now, or a few $100s for some shrimp. But there are other people that make mayonnaise that is without the use of animal products. That's cheaper. Hampton Creek. There's egg whites that are being made, Claire Foods, without the use of animals, and that's getting cheaper. So that is, I believe in it. I believe it can taste and provide and be grown in bioreactors and be provided to even the poorest people in the world cheaply and effectively. Next question, do you believe in tissue engineering human organs? Yes. As long as we take, obviously, the right cells, the right scaffolding, the right proteins to catalyze the structure of those organs and then to test them effectively, I absolutely believe that we could plug in another fresh, young human heart or human brain or human liver or kidneys or whatever. I believe in that. Next, do you believe meditation eradicates suffering and propels world peace? Hi, Matthew. Thank you for joining. Good comment. All right, so now on this question, I'll address Chris on Facebook asked, how does one disconnect and recharge? This question, I believe, will answer his point as well. Do you believe meditation eradicates suffering and propels world peace? Yes. The answer to that question is yes. Suffering comes from ourselves. Suffering comes from ourselves. It never comes from the outside. Always comes from ourselves. The way that we perceive the world is deterministic of our suffering. If we think that the world is not working the way we want it to work, we suffer. But if we're happy with the way the world is, then we end up not suffering. We know that meditation ends up calming our nervous system down. It gives us more insight and intricacy into the smallest situations that we have with one another. Meditation also does things like increases your focus and your attention to be able to execute tasks you want to get done. So I do believe it propels world peace because I think it decreases violence. I think it is more of a connecting to your own body and then connecting to the world sort of process. And I think meditation helps disconnect and recharge. And I think that's going to be a next level thing for society as well. Imagine all 7.5 billion people from noon until on this, let's say 3.5 billion on noon or whatever time, everyone picks a time and just meditates for 5 minutes during time. This half of the planet from noon till 1 meditates for 5 minutes. The other half of the planet from noon to 12:05 meditates for 5 minutes, etc. That will be a future that we live in my opinion. I think that will happen when the whole world can somehow be able to work and meditate and go towards world peace together. Next question. Woo, thanks for tuning in. This is going really well, everyone. All right. This is definitely a spotty question. A lot of people are not in favor of this question ever. And I ask this question to people not because I believe one way or another, but because I'm interested to hear other people's perspectives on it. All right, question. Do you believe 9/11 was a Trojan horse for the implementation of centralized banks in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya? This is a big question. I think a lot of people just swept 9/11 under the rug and moved on. And I think that's okay if you want to do that. I'm not so quick to do that. I want to know more. I lived through that tragedy as a fourth grader, and it was one of the most shocking experiences of my life. And also what we've been doing in the Middle East over the last decade has been one of the craziest experiences of my life as well. And I want to know exactly why we did that, why we went there, why the organizations in the Middle East potentially caused what they did, how potentially World Trade 7 fell without any planes hitting it, just collapsed straight down, what happened to the jet that hit the Pentagon, or why Al-Qaeda was celebrating right afterward. Did they actually do it themselves? And did we go there to potentially implement centralized banks there? Who knows? Who knows? And let's just say that the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the global banking movement definitely wants more centralized banks, and places like Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya weren't wanting them. And did we use it as a choice to get there? We don't know. For example, Iran and North Korea are two of the last countries in the world that don't have centralized banks, and obviously we can't go there and implement centralized banks. Just keep your eye out on it and keep asking people about it. All right, next question. Do you believe humanity should provide water, food, energy, education, and healthcare to all? This is a great question. I think it's really important to talk about. Everybody should have basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs met. I think that's really important to do. And that's going to be your basic physiological needs, like you need air, You need air to survive. You need water to survive. You need food to survive. You need shelter to survive, a roof over your head. So I think that those needs definitely need to be met. I think it's really important for us to help people make those needs. Some people choose to not want a roof over their head. I was just having a conversation today with a neuroscientist, Ted Zanto, about homelessness. And some people who are homeless don't want a roof over their heads because they prefer to live that way. They don't want the responsibility of a home. So just a thought, right? Just a thought. So, but by providing, if you can determine more about a human today by, you can measure their life outcome more by their zip code, where they're born, than you can by their actual motivation to achieve things. That's crazy. You got to be able to provide education to more people in more areas in a futuristic sort of way. It's time to bring education to people with the intentions of teaching them about civilization, about space-time and evolution and consciousness and machine intelligence, simulation theory, where we're going, who we are, where we came from, who we are, and where are we going. And I can get more into that later. I do think there needs to be some sort of a basic way we provide care for people on this planet. But who's going to pay for that? How we're going to structure that's a completely different question. And I'd be willing to entertain conversations about that soon. And I'd love to hear more of your opinions about this. All right, last question. Do you believe in bridging the gap of inequality? I kind of talked about that a little bit in the last answer. Yes, I think that's really important to help self-actualize more people, to provide them with the resources for them to achieve their dreams more easily. I think that's the main part of inequality, is to provide them with their basic needs as well as help them become self-actualized. And the last point is, do I believe in universal basic income? I don't know if that's necessarily the way that we're going to end up structuring the future civilization, and that's kind of going to be the way that we move forward. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but I think that's a viable option. It's being tested in certain places right now. And who needs a universal basic income if robots are in the fields planting the spinach, watering it, harvesting it, and then drones, and it's all solar paneled, that are flying to us and dropping it off at our homes? Why do we need the money anyway? So that's just food for thought. And if there's enough homes for everybody to live in a home, why would we need it? But still, I'm interested in talking about it more with you all. Obviously I've had some great responses from people, from prominent figures in my network have responded with their answers to these questions. It's great. I will be talking about their answers soon as well. And I will be interviewing more prominent people in my network and asking them these questions live in theater settings and in text-based settings, and recording those and putting them online. If you believe you have some good questions to add to this list, please comment later. I'm going to put this in both the SoundCloud podcast on 2030. I will put this on the Facebook Live comments, as well as make a separate post about it, and same thing with YouTube. I'll put it down under the video. If you feel like a question should be added, please comment. I'd love more profound questions to ask. And again, thanks for tuning in, everyone. I appreciate you all greatly. Hopefully this has catalyzed some sort of profound change in you. If it has, please share this with other people. Please feel free to take these questions and repurpose them, ask them to other people, share them with the world. And yeah, like, subscribe, comment, please. And I'll follow up with you guys more soon. Thanks.